Welcome to the Homeownership podcast presented by Movementum Realty, located in Hanover, Massachusetts. This series covers all things real estate and the best practices for buying, selling, and owning property. Now here is your host, Sean Maloney.
Welcome to episode 234, Storage Hacks. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Maloney. Thanks for joining me this week. This week, we're going to talk all about different ways to store things, how to set yourself up for success, how to get ready for selling, and what you can look for as a buyer as far as storage and understanding what kind of storage you have for your house. Quick story, when I was a kid, I was just getting into the home buying process. I was thinking to myself, okay, I'm going to have this huge house, right? And I thought, okay, that'd be great. Well, now I'm older and I realize huge houses aren't everything. That said, I realized things like closets, basements, things like that come in important. When I was 23, I bought my first home. I bought a home with no coat closet and many other things like that. I had no idea until later in life that a coat closet mattered as far as thinking about it until I bought that home. Storage matters, guys, and that's what this episode's all about. When organizing a room, putting things into storage, it's important to get creative. There's ways to fold things, break things down, deflate them. Anything you can do to create more space is worth it. Early in the game, when we first buy a house, we feel like I have unlimited storage. And then slowly but surely, the more things we buy, the more that we don't put away correctly, the more the disorganization happens and the more dysfunction that happens. Everything from items getting broken and lost to items getting stained and scratched. So when you're thinking about storing things long term versus short term, you want to do different things, but make sure to break things down, protect them, wrap them, bubble wrap them, put them in boxes, buy storage containers, anything you can do to protect the things you're storing. Because another thing to remember is when you're storing things, you're going to see dust and other things settle on them. Maybe bugs get into them. So by having nice clean totes, bags, and different ways to close things up, you're going to have a way to protect them. Always, always, always make sure when you're going to be doing storage that you pay attention to climate control. Make sure to have a dehumidifier. Make sure not to put away things damp or moist. You don't want to grow mold. You don't want to grow problems. Remember. Climate control when storing items whenever possible that are going to be damp items. So most homes, they have extra space in the attic. Well, it's not climate controlled. There's certain things you can store up there. You can get some plywood and you can create a floor, and you can put items up there that are okay with being up there, such as the Christmas tree and other items that you might have. Now, obviously, be careful on weight. Make sure to pay attention to what you can and can't do in your own attic. I don't want to tell you to load the place up, but there are lots of different items, plastic toys, all sorts of things that can be lost up there for the time being and then taken back down when you need them. Do remember, if you live somewhere that have mice, things like that, if you put too much like cotton and other materials like that, you could end up with mice and they end up making bedding in it or chew holes in it. So be careful with that. The attic space, I would usually use totes. I would try to minimize it if it's not needed. Hit the basement, same thing. When storing items in the basement, get large totes that stack well. They can really conserve space, give it a clean look. Remember, when you're selling the house, you really need to also store things in a way that makes sense, that the person can look at the home and understand, okay, I can see all the walls. Because a lot of times people will fill the garage or fill some other room and it makes it almost unviewable. And then when the home inspector comes, there's no way to actually get at the walls and they're not able to do a proper home inspection, maybe even needing to come back and charge people a second time. So when we're stacking things and we're going to be selling, we want to think about at least 18 inches off the wall and doing a neat job. Because remember, both the buyer and seller are looking at the house right now. The seller is looking at getting out, but the buyer is looking at it as a potential to buy. Oftentimes with too much storage, an area can seem really small. So when we have a huge amount stored there, it can be awful for that. So one of the hacks I want to tell you today is make sure to get yourself a pod or something like that and then have it hauled off-site. Don't have it holding up your driveway. Don't have it in the way. Get a lot of that stuff out. Now's the perfect time to think about gifting, throwing away, selling, donating, whatever it be, items that you're not going to use on the other side. Oftentimes as we move, we start to learn about all the different things we bought. We get a little nostalgic. We even think about the money we spent. But the reality is, if it doesn't need to be on the other side, meaning the other side of your move, you're going to spend more money moving it. You're going to spend more time, and then you're going to spend more to figure out a location to put it in, possibly storing it. So one storage hack is to not store it all. Gift, do what you can. Get rid of all that extra clutter. But remember, if you're going to be taking it with you, protect it for the move. Remember to label everything. I highly recommend when doing storage to always use a labeling system. Write down on the box label what it is, or write down a number and keep an item catalog, because as you make more and more boxes, and especially if you're reusing them, they have all sorts of different writing. You might not be able to find things aside going through every single box again. So be professional about it and think about putting your storage in a way that makes sense, so that way there when you're opening it, you know where everything is. One thing I can tell you guys about storage hacks when it comes to that, always think small. Think of ways of making things smaller, more compact, make sure they stack together well, square them up, put them in vacuum bags, do everything you can to reduce the size footprint that you're going to have, and reuse. There's all sorts of containers we have in life, everything we have for organizing things like screws, nuts, bolts, and all those little items that are easy to get lost in the whole shuffle of things. Make sure to use tape remotes to things. Make sure to pay attention as you're breaking anything down to save all those pieces. Put the different screws in baggies, label them, and do everything you can to find success. Guys, I hope this helps you store more items successfully and get ready for that next move. If you're a buyer looking at houses, make sure to look to yourself. Where would I store things if I was to buy this house? Thanks again for listening and have a great week.